I said to Stevie Rollins, well, I'm using the same size. It's very hard to take a new set of spikes that you're in the pumping. It's not even told exactly what it all looks like. But this is the children of Israel as they came out of Egypt. They were told to set up a tabernacle or a sanctuary for the Lord to dwell in their midst, and the tribes of Israel gathered around. There were 12 tribes. So the tribe of Joseph would become the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh, and then there was a 13th tribe, which is the Levitical tribe, which camp around. They were sort of used for the ministry of the work that had to be done in the service of the tabernacle. And this is an artist's impression of what it may have looked like. That fence arrangement there, with the various, there you go. That was the altar of sacrifice, there was the laver, there was this a tent arrangement there, which we look at a little bit more, and that was camped around it. You know, three tribes to the east, to the west, to the north, and to the south, under their various banners and so on, and it all had significance. And in a way, it was the church in the wilderness, the Lord amongst his people in this remarkable way. So it took about 9 months to do everything that the Lord instructed them concerning the tabernacle. They did it all according to the pattern that the Lord showed Moses. And of course, when it was all completed, the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle, and the Lord dwelt in their midst from that day, and he led them with a pillar of fire by night, and of course by a cloud by day. So the Lord was with his people in his presence and his glory, and he communed with them by Moses and other ways that the high priest could approach the most holy place in this tent arrangement. And so that was how they were set up. Soon after they came out of Egypt, we heard a bit about that, how they were delivered from the hand of Pharaoh. Just a bit of a closer look. Again, just an artist's impression, but there was a lot of activity that went on around the tabernacle. You know, the sacrificial animals were brought in. There was a lot of different sacrifices made for a variety of reasons that the Lord gave them. And of course, the entrance from the east through this particular gate, and all the ministry was done by the Levites, the third tribe of Israel, which was set aside for this purpose. The priest performed all the services in the tabernacle, many sacrifices in here in the courtyard, and also there was a lot of things that they had, duties they had within the tent arrangement. We'll just have a quick look at that. This is a cutaway. There's the fence. There's the fence there, and there's the cutaway of what was in the tent. There were 2 rooms. This is known as the holy place, and this is known as the most holy place. That was 2/3 the size of all of this, and this is 1/3 the size. And the Ark of the Covenant was in here with this curtain of the veil. Quite often we read in the Bible the veil of the temple, and we know when Jesus died, the veil was torn in two. That's the reference to this particular curtain that was between the holy place and the most holy place. And in here there was the candlestick, the showbread here, and of course the altar of incense, and they all had to be attended to by the Levitical priests. And it was all part of what the Lord ordained, and it had to be done on an ongoing basis. Now, Aaron, of course, was the brother of Moses, and he was the first, what the Bible describes, high priest. And he had some particular special duties to perform in the ministry, and also to make an atonement, as it were, according to the way the Lord, if he wanted it to be done once a year for all the congregation of Israel, an atonement for their sin, or a covering for their sin. And so this is how he was to be dressed. And it's quite unusual, I suppose, but all of those garments are very, very are described in a lot of detail in the Bible, and some very clever people, craftspeople who could do all the correct sewing and embroidery work and everything that needed to be done to make these garments came together, and they were given skills by the Lord to make it all happen. So there's a lot of detail in the whole tabernacle and the construction of it, and there's a lot of detail in how not just the high priest but also the Levitical priesthood had to be dressed, but this is the high priest. He wore these particular garments. I'm just going to get, and they shall make in Exodus 28 holy garments for Aaron, thy brother, for glory and for beauty. And I've got a slide coming up that sort of gives a bit of a breakdown of all the various garments. But we notice here on the front, over the high priest's heart, was this breastplate. It was called the breastplate of judgment. And up here he bore the names of Israel up on his shoulders, and also on the chains that came down onto the breastplate. And onto the breastplate were these 12 gems or stones, precious stones. They all were different, but they all represented the 12 tribes of Israel, one stone for each particular tribe. And he had to be dressed like this when he went into the most holy place. With the breastplate over his heart, the Bible says when he went into the holy place, continually before the Lord. So the Lord was very specific in how the high priest had to present himself. This is just a slide about the atonement which had to be given once a year. So there was duties described, and this one is particularly described in a lot of detail in Leviticus 16. And he shall make atonement for the holy sanctuary. Now you can read all the verses before that, all of chapter 16, a lot of detail on what they had to do to make atonement, including the fact that 2 goats had to be taken, one had to be killed, another one had to be made a scapegoat, and symbolically all the sins of Israel were laid upon the scapegoat, and of course it was all symbolic of Jesus Christ, who would bear our sins, and it was led off into the wilderness, and there was a lot of detail on how this atonement had to be made. But right at the end of the chapter we read, he shall make atonement in the holy sanctuary, and he shall make atonement for the tabernacle of the congregation and for the altar, and he shall make an atonement for the priests and for all the people of the congregation. A lot of that was a sprinkling of the blood of the sacrificial animals. And this shall be an everlasting statute unto you, to make an atonement for the children of Israel for all their sins once a year. And he did as the Lord commanded Moses. So a lot of detail, and we're not going to go into the detail because we want to get onto the Urim and the Thummim. But this is all a background for us to appreciate how the Urim and the Thummim fits into all this. Again, the high priest with all his clothing, and there's some of the duties that he had to offer sacrifice on Sabbaths, on new moons, and on festivals, the meat offerings for himself every day, for a sweet savour unto the Lord, and to inquire of God's will via the Urim and the Thummim. That was part of his duties, was that he could actually access the will of God, the perfect will of the Father, and have a revelation of that through this thing that the Bible refers to as the Urim and the Thummim. In fact, in Leviticus 8:8 it says, and he put the breastplate upon him. Also, he put in the breastplate the Urim and the Thummim. So the Urim and the Thummim, which gave the high priest access to the will of the Father, were actually tucked in here by the high priest's heart behind. That's where the Urim and Thummim was. And it says, I'll read out of Exodus 28. Yes, there it is. And they shall put in the breastplate of the judgment the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be upon Aaron's before the Lord, judgment of the children of Israel on his heart before the Lord continually. So it was a vital part of what he wore, Urim and Thummim, up in here behind the breastplate. And there's a description of all the various items, the breastplate of judgment, with all the gemstones on it, representing the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. There's the list of all the 12 stones, the undergarments, of course, and the ephod, this particular garment, the sash around here, the shoulder pieces with 2 onyx stones in gold settings engraved with the names of the sons of Israel for remembrance. And up here a turban with this special mitre which said, "Holy to the Lord." And as far as God was concerned, this was his clothing for beauty and for holiness, and he was to present himself in this particular way. Now, the Urim and the Thummim means the lights and the perfections. That's the translation of those 2 words, the lights and the perfections. In Deuteronomy 33, verse 8, and of Levi, he said, this is the Lord speaking to Moses, and Moses passing this on to the blessing of the various tribes of Israel, and this was the tribe of Levi, where the priesthood came from, and of course the high priest. Let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One, whom thou didst prove at Massah, and with whom they did strive at the waters of Meribah. So his identification, Levi and the high priest, was Urim and Thummim. That was to be his glory. That was to describe what he was really all about, to minister on behalf of the people to the Lord and to access the will of the Father through Urim and Thummim. Now, Massah and Meribah, the meaning of those words means the temptation and the strife. Meribah means strife, or the chiding. And what happened is, not long after they came out of Egypt and they were down in Rephidim, in a place called Horeb. Horeb means a waste desert place, and it was there that they had no water. And the people of Israel chided with Moses and really tempted the Lord. Moses said, "You are tempting God," because they said, "We have no water to drink." And they weren't trusting the Lord, and that's how the Lord saw it, as a tempting of him and his faithfulness, and also a causing of strife, with chiding with Moses, his servant, and the leader of the people. And so that's where God instructed Moses to take the staff and to strike the rock. And the rock brought forth the water to give drink to the people. We know it's all symbolic of Jesus Christ being struck on our behalf. He's the rock, and from him came the living water, the Holy Ghost. And it flows out of our innermost being, as Jesus said it would. So it's all symbolic of what Jesus would fulfill in our lives, but it was at this place, Massah and Meribah, where they tempted the Lord and they were causing strife and chiding with the servant of the Lord, where the rock was struck. And this is all incorporated in identifying Levi, and that his glory was the Urim and the Thummim. That was his duty before the Lord. In Numbers 27, and he shall stand before Eleazar the priest, who shall ask counsel for him after the judgment of Urim before the Lord. At his word they shall go out, and at his word they shall come in, both he and all the children with him, even all the congregation. So, in this, Moses was very humble. He was a meek man. The Bible says he was the meekest of all. And he always sought the Lord and sought the Lord's direction. And here we have an example in Numbers where the Lord gave direction through the revelation, through the Urim and the Thummim to the high priest, obviously, and of course Moses was able to direct the children of Israel. Now, they weren't always as good as Moses in seeking the will of the Lord, in seeking his direction. They had access to the Lord. Eleazar, by the way, was mentioned here. He was the third son of Aaron. His first two sons were killed by the Lord, actually, for offering strange fire before the Lord. But nevertheless, Eleazar succeeded his father as the high priest, and that's a reference to the high priest using the Urim upon his tongue, access to the will of God and the direction of the Lord. But as I said, they weren't always that good. Moses was. Joshua often sought the Lord as he took over from Moses through the high priest, through Urim and Thummim. But there were times when they didn't. There was a time when the children of Gideon, the Bible says, tricked the Israelites, making out to be somebody they were not. And of course, Joshua took their story and didn't seek the Lord about direction of how to deal with these particular people. We won't go into the story now, but the Bible says they did not take counsel from the mouth of the Lord. So they had access, they had the Urim and the Thummim, they had the high priest. In fact, as I said before, the blessing upon Levi, upon the priesthood was the Urim and the Thummim. They were to rule, they were to prosper, they were to learn of God's will, they were to understand his judgment and his directions for his people. They were, to know that the judgments of the Lord are always right and just and true and correct, and they were able to trust in that. The Bible says in Psalm 19, the commandments of the Lord are pure, enlightening the eyes, giving us revelation and understanding of the truth and perfections, and the perfect judgment of the will of God. And the Bible says there's more to be desired are they than gold. So that's what they should have desired. The Urim and the Thummim, the judgment of the Lord, the direction of the Lord, to love it, to see it as, the most precious thing they had. And yet there were times when they failed to take counsel of the Lord. There were other times, like in the matter of Achan, you may remember, Achan took something he shouldn't have taken and hid it in his tent, and they sought the Lord's direction on that matter and was able to deal with him in the way that the Lord directed them to do. By the time you come to the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, is where the Urim and the Thummim is last mentioned in the Bible. In fact, Nehemiah refers to it by saying to the people, we're not going to partake and eat of the holy things until there's a priest amongst us with the Urim and the Thummim. The priest, the genuine priest, and the priesthood, the Levitical priesthood, was always identified by the Urim and the Thummim. Eventually, the priesthood became so polluted and so corrupted and so covetous. A lot of them, well over a third of them, married into wives they should not have married, only because of gain and of inheritance and of money and so on. And they forgot their name, they forgot their glory, they forgot their Urim and Thummim. They forgot they had the lights and the perfections of God. In the Bible dictionary, this is a description of the Urim and the Thummim. They're objects not specifically described. Perhaps stones, we're not sure. Perhaps they were stones. Perhaps a place in the breastplate of the high priest, we know that, which he wore when he went into the presence of the Lord, and by which he ascertained the will of God in many important matters affecting the nation. Sometimes they're referred to as yea, nay stones, cast like a lot, to give illumination of God's will in the heart. So somehow or other, the Urim and the Thummim was able to reveal to the high priest the will of God, the perfect will of God, to enlighten him, to give him light and direction in the way the Lord wanted things to be done, and to give a judgment in certain matters. We don't know how they worked exactly. And like an oracle, which is a person or a thing serving as an infallible guide, the Urim and the Thummim gave God's answer, gave his divine revelation, gave profound wisdom, judgment, and understanding. And they had access to it, but of course they lost their way. Maybe one more slide I think I've got. Urim and the Thummim, the lights and the perfections. An oracular brilliancy is the words that are used to perhaps describe how these stones or whatever they were actually express themselves, maybe in the way they lit up or the way they, I don't know how they communicated the will of the Lord, but there was something about them which gave the high priest intimate understanding in his heart about the direction the Lord wanted them to take. So an oracular brilliancy is one of the ways they describe the stones to give a descriptive expression of God's complete and perfect will. That is probably as good a definition as we can come up with the Urim and the Thummim and what it achieved and what it did. Now the Urim is mentioned 7 times, and the Thummim is mentioned 5 times in the Bible. As I said, the last time it's mentioned in the book of Nehemiah. And of course, we appreciate enough of Bible numerics to the 5 is the number of grace, and 7 is the number of spiritual perfection. So the Holy Spirit, by the grace of God, is really what they represented. I think that's about it. Yeah, we could have some lights and turn your Bibles